Hey, it's me, Rob Ryan. I am back with another really enjoyable and thoughtful episode of Entrepreneurial Thinkers this week for you to enjoy. I don't know how many of you entrepreneurs or even how many of you investors, executives thought about, building that dream business of yours and then someday having that huge success milestone of selling your company, right? And obviously, all the media tells us that, you sell your company, your wild success story, and you're a millionaire or a billionaire or something like that. But the truth is very different than that. And I got to sit down with my friend and a longtime alumnus of our show here, Lauren Gregor, now former founder of the children's clothing company called Rent-A-Romper. You remember from her prior episode where we talked about the Rent-A-Romper story. We got to sit down with her as she talked about that exact journey, having successfully exited and sold her company this summer. And we really dive into the realities of what that means, both as a person, as a human, to let go of that thing which you have birthed and the emotional toll and journey of that. But we also talk about the challenges in the startup environment that got her to that point of making the decision that she made and looking at the options that were available to her with the input of her advisors. It was just this incredibly human, heartfelt, very empathetic, very thoughtful, and very detailed conversation that doesn't surprise me at all because that is who Lauren is. But I will also tell you that there's a roadmap in this story for those of you that might be going through these types of moments yourselves in your own startups, your own entrepreneurial journeys, where you might feel that you find yourself maybe stuck in that space between, can I get it big enough to have it be what I wanted it to be, or do I have to shut it down? And there's a space in between that you can navigate. And she gives you a very specific set of principles, tactics, ideas, as well as then again, wrapping them all in the humanity that makes her the special woman that she is. So I really hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as both of us did making it for you.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back or welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And you may or may not know this if you're new or if you've been with us regularly each week. This is the show where I get to have weekly conversations with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society and industry as we come together to try and leave this world a little bit better than we found it through conversation. So today I'm super excited to be joined by a good friend, Lauren Gregor, the former founder of Rent-A-Romper and a returning guest alumni of our show. She's a regular at this. Lauren is someone who's not just currently reinventing her life and her career, but she's redefining what reinvention can look like. After founding the sustainable kids clothing brand Rent-A-Romper and building it from the ground up over the last handful of years, then exiting the company this summer via an acquisition, Lauren is now stepping into kind of a new chapter in life. And one that's, I know, because I know her well enough, going to be rooted in really helping others while also exploring her new pathways in both her life and her career. Keep in mind, she's done all of this that I just described while her parents' home, the childhood home she grew up in, and the neighborhood she grew up in here in Los Angeles, Pacific Palisades, burned to the ground back in our historic LA fires of January 2025. I mean, so talk about a lot of conflicting emotional dynamics at play in one life in 1 year. And now she's sort of trading operations for insights, startup chaos for strategic calm. And she's here to talk about that messy, beautiful pivot of letting go, of leaning in, and exploring what's next, which we all go through at different points in our life. So let's talk shifts, let's talk conscious leadership, and let's talk kind of the art of building capacity, not just in business, but in life. Welcome back to Entrepreneurial Thinkers, Lauren. How are you, buddy?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited. Your intro sounds great. I think strategic calm sounds like what I should be
better than startup chaos.
I love it.
You've had a lot going on. You and I met, just some background for folks that are joining us today. You and I met, had coffee a couple months ago here in LA. You were kind enough to come across town to my side of town that week. And we visited, and in that conversation, we were like, okay, we got to have this part of this conversation on the podcast. And so that's what we're doing. Yet there's been a lot that has evolved and has gone on in the couple of months since we've seen each other. So I'm eager to hopefully set you up in an opportunity for you to talk about all that. But I've got one kind of overarching question that I want to open us up with, which I'm eager to hear your take on this. What does success look like for you now?
Wow. I think I'm getting closer to what that answer looks like. I think success for my family is having some stability. So, being around for my kids when they need it and, some financial stability, not being in that little bit of startup chaos, but really I want to be careful about what I choose to do next and what projects I take on. And I want to be doing stuff that I feel like is having an impact for others and I'm being helpful to the world. And if I feel good about the work that I'm doing every day and I can have that stability for my family, then I think that's success going forward.
That's awesome. Also not surprising at all that is your vision for yourself. I'm curious, right? We're starting this in kind of the place of Rent-A-Romper in the chronology of your life story. But I know you well enough to know, and previous guests, if they go back and listen to your original episode, you get a lot more of your backstory. Right? You've been even when you worked in kind of more traditional jobs, let's call them, right, in your traditional career part of your career, you've always been one that kind of looks at the big picture, right? And without spoiling the punchline here, right? Even some of our conversations a couple of months ago were around these ideas of, what types of things are interesting to you. It feels like please tell me, it feels like this isn't just hey, I sold my company and now what's the next thing I'm going to do? It almost feels more like you've experienced previously in your life, like a very natural life transitional moment that is affording you the opportunity to kind of say, like, what do I want to do, like, in the world, like, with all my time and talents, and how does it fit into my life? So it sounds like it feels like it's more than just like, hey, okay, this project is over. What's my next project? Is that true?
It's definitely true. And this wise person told me once at coffee, that I think as I sort of exit the startup world, there's times during this process where I felt like, okay, what is next? As in, what project is next? What company is next? What thing that I go to do job wise is next? And I think there's been, because the process of exiting takes a while, of like rolling back and reflecting on what actually I want or what I don't want. And that I'm not just an exited founder that started this company, but I am that and everything I've learned during that process. But I am also everything that I came before that as well in 20 years of career. So I think the process now is like, how do you bring all of those pieces of me together? And then, take out the parts that say, this does not fit with what I want.
Right.
And to be really thoughtful about like who I am now, what are the skills that I have, and to have like the time to actually think through that is a blessing,
Sure.
to be able to do that. And I do think I'm in that transition point. And I do think it's maybe only in the last 8 weeks, 3 months as we've gone through the actual acquisition, that I've started to, I guess, coalesce like what that means for me and then like what areas. It's not even like what job or what project, but what things in the day-to-day world do I feel really passionate about? And then how can I like put my skills to that? And that's taken a very long time to get to that point.
In context, right? I mean, like it probably feels weighty and like a long time. The truth is, you just like over 8 weeks. Some of these things become more clear, right? Over 12 weeks, over 6 months, over a year. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like you said, you've worked professionally for 20 plus years. right? And so to have that moment, give yourself a little credit is what I'm saying there, right? Like it's not quite as long as it probably feels like emotionally to you. And you probably also feel a little bit of that emotional, like, oh my God, this is a long process because you, and this is me putting words in your mouth. So tell me if I'm wrong. You haven't gotten to the answer to these, like, what are those things in the world? What is the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I have ideas of that,
yeah,
and I have things that have, come across where I've been talking with people and I think, that's really interesting. I want to learn more, or I want to, figure out how I can help a little bit. There are things that are starting to pique my interest. But it's been a process for sure.
yeah, no,
And
it's
I'm
awesome.
still figuring it out.
What a beautiful life journey. One of the reasons I kind of frame this next question up, right? One of the things you and I talked about over coffee that day was that this acquisition process brings up lots of insights, lots of emotions, some of which you just referred to, but it also brings this, like, it brought you a lot of perspective on kind of what I'll call the startup entrepreneurial journey, right? And a lot of both the truths and some of the misinformation or bullshit of that. Right. And we wanted to discuss that. So my question, like, let's talk about startup culture for a little bit. Right. So in startup culture, my words here, right? We encourage everyone, chase your dreams, build big solutions to real problems, but then we kind of come around the other side of that and we typically underfund the vast majority of those people who we've shouted at to go build dreams and solve real problems. And I'd go as far as to say, like, we funnel everyone into this very narrow venture capital pathway, when, as you and I've discussed, and I discuss all the time on the show, like, most shouldn't be, right? And then that leaves a lot of folks grinding to build sustainable businesses that may never have the runway that they need to really break through. And I feel like I'm imposing my own perception here on this conversation, but, like, I feel like that's a little bit of what happened with Rent-A-Romper, right? Is you got down that path, and then, practically speaking, like, literally it was difficult as a founder running the business that you were running, this particular type of industry, being a woman, all these dynamics, right? Like, that are conditions you and I didn't create, but then you had to play that game. Like, I feel like all of those things came into play, which ultimately then leads to you making decisions that you made. So talk to us about that. Like, how did all of that reality of the startup culture kind of wind up applying to you and Rent-A-Romper in your journey?
Yeah. So I think all of what you said is right. And it's, I mean, to be able to talk about this and the journey of 5 years of building this company. So, like, almost where even to start. But I guess the first part is I came in as a first-time founder. I've never created a business before. Nice. I am a solo founder. So I came in and looked for help, right? Like, I went into accelerator programs and trying to figure out the way to do this and the way to build it. And when I first started Rent-A-Romper, I am not from e-commerce. I am not a D2C business person. I come from public sector tech and operations. So this was all new and learning rapidly about every single thing that you could possibly do to build this business. And so a lot of that, you take advice wherever you can and you get in community wherever you can. And so that's what I did. And I started out with those places. But the first things that they tell you, besides, like, what's your problem and what's the solution, is, like, how to raise money. So the first conversations are not about, like, well, let's build a financial model and look at what this business might actually look like in 18 months or 2 years or
Right.
3 years.
Or how do you go from one customer to 10 to
Or
100
1 to 10
to 1,000 to 2,000, and how do you
right.
adjust your
And, like, what does
margins?
that mean for your financials? What does that mean for your investment in marketing and in growth? Like, a lot of that doesn't get addressed at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't get talked about at all. So you're talking about raising. You're talking about, what's my pitch? Well, how am I going to talk about my problem? How big is the market? Which are all, like, important things to understand, and really to understand how to communicate to your customer, how to, like, get that customer insight. All of those things, you have to do it. But the next thing is how to pitch. Then you're going to raise money. How are you going to raise money? You're going to do an angel round. Then you're going to do a pre-seed round and you're going to do this. So a lot of that preparation at the beginning is like, how do I present my brand? How do I present my company? And at the beginning, I was revenue generating. So like in those days, we were getting customers and we were building and growing. But I didn't have a ton of guidance around what does that mean? And like, at what point should I start advertising or this or that?
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Chisos Capital. Everyone knows that raising capital is hard. And frankly, finding the next pool of entrepreneurs to get access to as limited investors is sometimes impossible too. Do you have a big idea, a dream you're building, but you're struggling to find early funding? Well, Chisos is changing the game for founders, creators, athletes, and investors. Whether you're launching a startup, growing your creative brand, or training for the big leagues, Chisos backs you. Chisos uniquely invests up to $100,000 in people, not just products, whether they be entrepreneurs, creators, or even athletes. With their unique CISA model, convertible income share agreements, founders get flexible funding without giving up equity or ownership, and investors get attractive returns and great upside with less risk. Chisos works for both investors and the people bringing our world to life. If you're seeking access to a truly diverse pool of deals, or you're someone who feels overlooked by the VC game, Chisos is ready to back you. So apply now at chisos.io.
I was going to inject something here just for some context for folks if they don't remember your story, right? Like you were that, I call it classic, and I don't know if it is still classic. Maybe it's my old version of classic from the way that entrepreneurship was before we hit this kind of bubbly period of the last 20 years. But like you were the classic, like, I'm starting a business to solve my problem.
Yes.
Like, and as you said, no background. You weren't, I'm an expert from this industry and I see a hole that I want to solve. Like you were literally like hi, I'm here. There's an opportunity to do this thing better that I partake in as a consumer, as a mom, as a person, right? As a decision maker in my household. And I think maybe this could also apply to other people that are like me, that I'm friends with, and et cetera. So you were what we would now call, like, you were building a real business.
Yes. And I think like when I first started, we had an Instagram and I was like DMing with people who were paying me like, however, I don't even know if Venmo or Zelle existed back then, but like whatever, they were paying me somehow. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And that was it. And like 10 customers. And then we got that feedback. Then we built a website. Then we launched. And at that time, I hadn't started any of those accelerators, but we were just trying to grow.
And you were literally in your living room, in your garage, like making stuff and sending it stuff, and people send you money. That's a business.
Yeah, that's how it was going. But at that time, like the first intro to like, let me be in a community of other people that are building these businesses, it is like how to raise money.
Yeah.
And so the first things I started to do were like, okay, well, where can I pitch this? How can I go to VC? Getting feedback from VC that it's great that we have revenue, but we're not big enough. We're not this enough. So the
same VCs who would say, if you didn't have revenue, hey, go get some revenue.
Go get revenue. Or like when I was that big, then they say, oh, you're still not big enough.
Right.
So, I mean, we got on that train, right? Like we need to raise money. And looking back on it now, I got to a place where I started our website in 2020. So then you also think about the context of the time that we were building this business, where it was about growth. And the feedback I would get was like, you need a co-founder, you need a technical person, you need this, like you need more people to grow your business. That's literally an investor told me that.
Like you need to spend more money that you don't have.
Spend the money that you don't have, and then I can trust that I can invest in your business.
Right.
And so I started to grow and I started to build our team, and I, was investing in growth, and we were growing year over year. But every time we were investing in that growth, then we're not investing, like we're not getting to break even.
Right.
So there was this wheel of keep growing, you're demonstrating growth, you're not quite there, then like go out to raise a pre-seed. And at the time, people were really not sure about direct to consumer, not investing in e-commerce, and very hesitant about our model, which was like, oh, circular economy. We don't really know if people want secondhand, even though the market is like booming now.
Well,
And
stuff that's good for the planet and society.
yeah, stuff that's good for the planet, but even stuff that's growing exponentially faster than like regular retail. So it's just like nothing, right? So, but spending all of that time and all of that energy invested in how does this company look as a startup to that space and to that world, and not enough time like, well, yeah, you could bootstrap. I think that's the part of the culture. It's like you could raise from VC. By the way, there are these other ways to get capital, which is like an SBA loan, which nobody has revenue enough to get early on. And you could also bootstrap. But nobody says, how do you bootstrap?
Right.
Like,
no
even
one's
if you have
right.
money
Yeah.
to put in,
No
or
one's
you're generating
no one's doing those webinars.
No, nobody's doing that webinar about that. So I think that is unfortunate for a lot of startups. And for like, you either are a small business, and some people will say lifestyle business, right? Like,
hate that term.
Like, okay, I can make enough money for like my family and
which is a business.
Me to like go out in the garage and pack some stuff and come back and like I'll be good. Or I can be a unicorn.
Right.
And like there's no in between.
Exactly.
There's no in between. There's no So that's really what it is. And you get I understand from the VC side, like their return expectations and all of that. And so you sort of build this culture that drives founders to chase it.
Yeah.
Because you need people that are going to like take the risk and do all of that. But it's also a huge disservice to founders who
Monumental.
There is actually this spectrum of businesses, and we're not supporting people that could be in the middle there.
Yep.
And, potentially could get $500,000 of investment and be profitable here on out forever.
Which, oh man, would that have changed the trajectory for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, we did raise a small amount of money, an angel investment from really just some friends, in 2021, which was huge to help us grow and get some of the partnerships that helped us like double our customers year over year until 2024. But then you can't do that anymore. We could be profitable and just be that small business. But if we wanted to really get to that next level, it would take a little more cash. And it wasn't a massive amount. But
then
cares about that space.
Right. I was just gonna say, because then therein lies, then that becomes another like dead end box that you get caught in, right? Because you're thinking it's a good thing to say, I mean, we only need 250,000 or 400,000 or 500, and then we're going to be able to do this times that, that's all and then people are like, oh, so you're not serious about growth. No, you're not here. In what world did you just take what I just said to not be no, I'm being actually super earnest and proficient about how to run my business, which is what you should want. Right. Yeah.
I think that's so difficult. The amount of mixed messages that you get. And we tried to raise, I shouldn't say I tried to raise a few times during this process. And with all of these signals from startup community and people we were advising, or advising us that it's time to go, you have the revenue, you have the growth, this is a big market, you have all the signals that this is a good time to go and get money. But then, you get, oh, you only need 750,000.
Like,
Well,
yeah,
shouldn't you be asking for 1.2? Shouldn't you be asking for 1.5? This is the pre-seed. This is the seed.
right.
Like, I thought, at least at the time, like, well, why do we need to ask for more money? Or why do I need to raise a seed thinking I'm going to raise a series A, B, C, D, when all we need is one investment. And
Right.
then we're going to build a profitable business going forward. So the whole thing is crazy. And people say it's crazy. And people are like, oh, build a startup or start your own business or be an entrepreneur. And it's hard. And
Chase
it's all
those
of those things.
dreams.
Go do
Follow
it.
your passion. Right. Go do that. It's cooler than being the other person, right? Like,
But
yeah.
all of that and the complexities around it and just the signals and the mixed messaging and like the lack of sort of education and support from across that spectrum of businesses,
yeah.
I think is really difficult for founders.
And I think that's the
And it was for
key.
me.
It's so honest and vulnerable of you to share all that. Thank you. Because I think the key and to put some other human context on this for everybody that's listening, right? Like, there are good people. These are good people that do this, that are the people that teach these people these things, right? So we're not picking, this is more of a systemic problem. This is an industrial problem, right? And the people that are the worker bees inside that industry are just doing their jobs, right? And their jobs are to teach these things and these steps because that's how they found their way into that industry. And then they get to feed off the like, hey, but I feel like I'm helping founders. And they are to some degree, right? And then they are helping some specific, very tiny group of founders to continue to go along that path that it fits. But in generally, the industry is broken. And it's been broken for the reason you just said. It does a disservice to the wide normal distribution of entrepreneurs and call them whatever you want to call them, entrepreneurs, founders, business people. I don't care. Like, but there's a wide spectrum of businesses that get created that eventually drive our economic growth that we all then are so proud of later. And we just by the way, for those that are younger listening to this, the old man in me can now say with great confidence, like, it didn't always used to be this way. And that's not me pining for the old days, like when the world was better. Like, no, like it just didn't used to be this way. This industry did not used to function in this way as recently as like 25-ish, 20, 30 years ago when I was raising capital, and we did it in very different ways. And the whole construct of it was very, very different. So what Lauren's attesting to here, everybody, is that it's still broken, or it is broken now. And I'm here to say that it could be done differently and it can be done better. And that hopefully stories like this testimonial from you help people to understand that it can be done better, because there will be founders, entrepreneurs, business people listening to this who are like, oh my God, she's talking directly to me. Right? Because they're out there. Basically, they went like you did, I think. And please tell me, because I think on the upsides of your experiences, you did find community. Like, you found communities of like-minded people. You just also found them in a system that then basically spent all its energy educating you all to chase down some particular path that wasn't then going to be serving for you, right? It wasn't going to be beneficial. But like, you did find other people, and there are people that are listening. They're going to be thinking, oh my God, like, I'm starting a consumer packaged goods company, or I'm running a coffee shop, or I'm like, or any number of beauty products, or like any numbers of the types of businesses that we see, especially in a diverse economy like Los Angeles. And they're listening to this going like, oh my God, like I've been on the same journey as her. Right. But you met good people like that.
Oh, there's amazing people that I've met. The communities, especially in LA, and the founders are all like, everybody's building such incredible products, businesses, like really smart, really thoughtful people. And we're all figuring it out. Like, we're helping each other figure it out. despite whatever challenges that might be, like
Right.
the
Like
community has been incredible.
the irony is you wind up hanging out with each other in the corner of the room going like, without necessarily even knowing how to say it, maybe at the time, like, we love each other, but like we feel like we're in the wrong room, like we're in the wrong system.
Yeah. I mean, I think looking back, and the VC community was like it's been a weird 3-4 years post COVID. But I think we found each other and said, like, is it this hard for you to get that next meeting? And, how are you thinking about raising capital? And if you're going to stop, a lot of the conversations I would have with founders around those times were like, are you going to fundraise, or are you just going to try to do this a different way? We're trying to figure it out. And those individuals are like the best resource that I've ever had during this whole journey.
That's awesome.
Even in deciding to, get to the point where we looked for a buyer and looked to exit. Like, the other founders are the number one resource that have, whatever, even if their experience is only a month ahead of me or like a year ahead of me, being able to, leverage whatever people have learned, whether it's mistakes or success.
Yeah, no, that's, again, it's all about the people. I'm such a deep advocate of that belief system. It's not the product, it's not the process. Those are important attributes of all businesses, but it literally is all about the people at the end of the day. All right. So you tipped it again, right? We talked about it at the opening. You sold your company. So obviously you're a billionaire now, right? That's how,
right. Yeah.
Or multimillionaire. I think I see cash like sticking out of your pockets on your
Lots of it.
All right. So, all right. So sorry, I'm being sarcastic, right? So we know this isn't true, right? Talk to us about some of the practicalities that most people don't think about. And you don't have to share any private details of your particular transaction, but just kind of more generally, like this idea that you sell your company someday. Woo, you're rich, right? Versus like sell your company and like, oh shit, I was able to, and this happened in my case a whole bunch of years ago. Like, so sell your company, which is basically selling the intellectual property, which gives you enough cash to pay off the debts and to pay back a couple of friends and to like look at your bank account and go, oh shit, I basically don't keep any for myself, right? So let's talk to you. But you're not a billionaire. You didn't sell Rent-A-Romper. You didn't go public. You didn't you're not on the New York Stock Exchange. Like, what's it more practically been like?
Yeah. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit just to like set the scene for this. So we, as Rent-A-Romper, like we were just talking about, we didn't raise venture and didn't have investment after 2021. So as the years progressed, we continued to grow. We were continue to increase our revenue. We were lowering our operating costs by like growing our inventory and being able to have like much more scale so we could leverage that. So we were moving in the right direction financially, and as a business, we were growing. And around 2023, I was thinking, okay, either we're going to have to raise capital so that we can continue to grow to get to the next level of scale and invest in marketing and invest in that growth and actually have like invest in the systems to make this very much more profitable business. Or I'm going to have to scale back on operating costs and get us to profitability and not raise. So that's in that time, I really started doing that. I was like, I tried going out to raise again, but it was taking all of my time, and I could have been spending that time thinking about operations. So that's what I did. And I pulled back. When people were leaving our team, I just didn't backfill, and I got us to in the black. I got us to that level where we're profitable month over month. And in 2024, we still hadn't raised capital. We were profitable, but at that point, we were growing and very lean because I had not backfilled. So I was doing everything. And, we kind of came to a point again, like, is this what I want?
Right.
Like, again, I wasn't paying myself. So that's a whole nother piece of this, where we got to a point where we're like, I talked to all of my advisors. I brought out all of our numbers. And if you look at our numbers at that time, you were like, this is a good business. Like, we're going in the right direction. We are profitable. We don't but we couldn't get to that next level.
You were a success. You were a success story.
We were successful. Like, I could have kept that business going and grown our profit very slowly over time. But it was a real, like, going deep inside to say, is that what I want to do? And is that my family who's been doing this and supporting me doing this for the last 5 years? Like, is that what we want? And do I want to be like, I had gotten to a point in the business where it wasn't the strategic big picture thinking and like figuring out all of the operations and how to do this and grow and everything. Now it was like very tactical, like pack boxes and get it out and
every
write
day.
Another email and pack another box. And personally, I was getting bored doing that. And so I had this like, I don't know, session with all of my advisors on the call. And we looked at all of the numbers and I said, there's these 3 pathways. Like, we can continue as is, trying to grow with little cash, and just, in 2 years, we'll get to a point where, we can do this forever. And I'll just be a box packer for the rest of my life. Or we can raise capital, or we can try to find someone to acquire the business. Or actually, the 4th option is we close. And so we like really weighed those things, but I knew I didn't want to like do option 1 of just continuing the way that it was. And capital was so difficult to find. And so we kind of went to those things and decided, what, finding an acquirer is probably the best way forward. We're in a position where we have assets that are good. Like, we have active customers, recurring revenue, we have inventory, we have a brand that people open their emails and, like an active customer brand. And we're in a position where like there's something that is desirable to be acquired. And if that doesn't work in 6 months or in a year, then we'll do the option 4, which was like close.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Shore Capital. In today's venture capital world, it's not just about cash. It's about relationships. Capital is harder to find, limited investors have fewer managers that they can trust, and the industry is just filled with far too much hype. Shore Capital is an early-stage venture fund investing in the world's most ruthlessly iterative founders, helping its limited partners to find founders who are solving the world's most dynamic problems, teams that excel in mastering the idea maze, teams moving with a rapid, iterative velocity and demonstrating radical resourcefulness. Shore Capital doesn't just write checks, though. They become fractional co-founders when needed, offering strategic support, high-leverage relationship development, and a deep commitment to the long-term success of their portfolio companies. If you are a ruthlessly iterative founder with a bold vision, or a limited investor seeking sustained access to the brightest big thinkers of our time, Shore Capital wants to meet you. So visit shorecapital.notion.site to learn more.
So in that moment, in that conversation with your advisors, in that moment, you're leaning, right? Like yourself individually already, you brought a bias to the discussion, right? Then they kind of come along and it sounds like generally get around consensus around your leanings. How do you go from that call to like finding prospective buyers to partner with? Like what's that process like?
Yes. So again, I've never sold a business before.
We've established this. Exactly.
I've never started a business before, and I've also never sold a business before.
All new, so, every step along the way.
Yeah. And I think this is, I know you'll ask this at the end, but this is my number 1 piece of advice that someone gave to me, and, I continue on, is talk to somebody that sold their business.
There you go.
talk to people that have been through it. So that's what I did. I reached out to the LA community. There were several other founders that had just been through this same process within the last year before me. And I reached out to one of my advisors. He had sold one of his businesses prior to the one he was in now. And I just talked to them like, what was your experience? Number one, how did you decide this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
How did you go about like looking for buyers and all of that? So I got as much advice as I possibly could about how the process worked, how they did that. And that was by far like the best thing that I ever did. And then in terms of buyers,
sorry to interrupt. In a weird way, it's almost like when I showed up at the startup ecosystem looking for community and guidance, like you eventually created your own best case scenario for how to get information and the type of support and information you needed in the end game of your business, right? And it's like, oh man, if we would just have that type of diversity of thought and experience and perspective around people when they start, it help make
and I would bet that all of those founders that I talked to were in a similar place where they were like, we're building a product, we're going to get venture funding, we're going to get it sold, we're going to get acquired by X CPG brand or whatever, and we're going to be millionaires. Because like we talked about before, unless you have that crazy, wild goal, nobody would do this.
Right.
Like it's really hard. And
unless right, I totally agree. Unless you have that clarity of vision and that purpose and that business that then there is a path to get it, not just to where you got it, but to that next tier, right? Where then it is like I opened up a coffee shop around the corner from my house and I raised my kids and I hired those 3 employees that work at the coffee shop and I'm there most days. Like then it's a quote unquote like viable, sustainable, growing small business, right? Like, but that notch below it where you existed, where most companies exist, right, is brutal, and no one would do that. Who would sign up for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, so those founders were in a similar place, probably 6 months to a year ahead of me. And so once I had talked to them, I started a list. I literally had a spreadsheet and I thought, okay, first actually I wrote down everything that I thought was an asset of ours. So besides clothing, we have recurring revenue. We have, this, like our customers are like this. This is the demographic of who you would be serving or acquiring, and all of that. And then tried to find who do I think would want that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
I mean,
by the way, there
almost kind of just obvious, practical, simple approach.
Yes, there are people that do this for you.
Yeah, of course.
Called brokers who have reached out over the time, or I would follow people who advise on selling your business or exiting. So I would just try to absorb as much as I could. But there are brokers, if you're in a position where you could pay a broker, who will do this for you. So they will create your asset list. They will help you generate a list of 80 prospects, all of that. But I didn't, have the cash to do that. And so I started on my own and really just listed anybody I thought that could possibly be interested in sustainable children's business, sustainable fashion, young parents, because even if I couldn't get somebody to take the whole company, there would be people that are interested in our customer demographic or in our inventory or pieces of our business. So I did that and then went from just literally sending them emails. And a lot of these people...
How many people were on that original cut of that spreadsheet?
Probably 25.
Okay.
And then, I will also say, I've always sort of been of the mentality of share and collaborate, because why not? I'm not really opposed to talking to people that are in my industry or in a similar type of business to me, because
for as much as we painted you, or you painted yourself as the independent solo founder in that room right there in your house. Like,
Yes.
Like for the rest of the world to be aware of, like you are a very dynamic relationship builder. You are very much a person in community with other people. I'm sure in your industry, digitally, virtually, et cetera, as well as here locally in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like, so you're
Because
you're
I
good with
feel
talking
like,
to everybody
number
about
one,
everything.
I'm trying to grow a business that's helping parents and like having an impact on our planet. And if there's somebody else that's also trying to do that, I'm going to cheer for them because we need more of it.
Right.
So that's sort of how I've always approached it. So what I will say is about that 25 list, 80% of it, I already know them.
Sure.
Like I have had a relationship with them in the past. We've done some collaborative something. We've exchanged emails. I've liked their social posts, like whatever.
Something.
There's some, they weren't cold.
Right.
So I just started reaching out and saying like, hey, I wanted to see how you're doing and how things are going with the business. Like wanted to see if you wanted to catch up.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing about, I want to sell my business.
Right.
Nothing about whatever. And so I went about that and ended up having probably about 10 conversations, which then led to like, oh, that's really interesting. How's your business? Blah, blah, blah. And eventually got to a point where I said like, well, do you think maybe we could work together? And we just started continuing those conversations. And there were some that were like, we're not in any position to do that right now of any kind.
But they're like, but by the way, thanks for this roadmap of getting to this conversation because I'm probably going to have to do my own list in a couple of years.
Yeah. Or, you know, like, well, we might be interested in this, but not that, or, you know, and so out of that, there were 3 that I kept actively talking to. And this process, I will say from like that advisor meeting, which I had already been thinking about this before the advisor meeting, right?
Sure.
Like I'd been thinking about it for months already at that point. That advisor meeting to an actual deal was 8 months.
Yeah. Great context.
So it doesn't happen overnight. And those conversations, like some of them I was having in parallel with multiple people, you know, and some of them were interested in some parts of the business, but not as a whole. And some parts were interested in like just picking up the whole thing. So it's a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
And then I think this was also guidance from another former founder that sold their business, is try to know what you want out of it.
Gee, right? Like why you and why this, why now? Why am I making this decision and what outcome do I want from it for me?
Because at the time, I had sort of 2 options of people that I was talking to, and the outcomes of those would look really different.
Okay.
And so they said, like, write down everything you want. And that was very difficult because I don't even know what I want, you know? Like
You're like, that's why I'm going through this process. I thought I was living the what I wanted question, right?
I thought that's what, yeah. So trying to figure that out was difficult. But it was also just a helpful exercise at that point because
Amazing.
it, like where we ended up. So Rent-A-Romper was acquired by the Swoondle Society.
By the way, you're such a good podcast guest at this point. You literally just asked the questions for me. This is awesome.
Whatever. Okay. So we were acquired by the Swoondle Society, which is another female founder, mom of 2, named Jen Zuckley. And she started the Swoondle Society to help parents with the immense overload of children's clothing and the mental load and the financial burden that is, and have less clothes on our planet.
We like Jen already.
Yeah, she's awesome. And so when we started talking to each other, it was more of like, well, how do we take 1 + 1 and make it 5? Like, how do we bring this together in a way that makes sense and helps grow? And, you know, it was that conversation we're like, our customers are super aligned. Our demographics are so similar. And in a lot of ways, it just made sense. We were a recurring revenue model, which they did not have. So adding a recurring revenue model onto their existing revenue structures just immediately adds value. And we have a lot of duplicate systems, so we could get rid of a lot of cost.
Nice.
And so this conversation's happened over, a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then, looking at each other's financials and seeing what are our goals? Like, how do we really want to make this work and what is valuable and not? So it took a while, but there was one point where we were like, are we doing this? Yes.
Awesome.
Do we
Wow.
want to do this? Yes, let's do it.
Right.
And then it's, from there it was like attorneys and paperwork, and then transitioning, obviously, and bringing the businesses together. But that's how we got to this point.
A hell of a journey.
Yes.
Almost like and it's not finished by any stretch, because as you said, Rent-A-Romper lives on in its glory as part of the new company and the mission and the purposefulness for its consumers, its users, its member community. All that stuff is like, it lives on forcefully. I still carry around my Rent-A-Romper water bottle every day. And so I'm just going to continue to promote the company for the rest of my life, because it's the best water bottle I've had in like 10 years. Shout out to your swag people from years ago. But like, it's not finished, but in some ways for you, as this transition begins now going forward, it's almost like it was like your thesis paper for your master's, right?
Definitely.
Like this has been your, as I used to say, and my original business partner in my original company, my first company way back 20 some odd years ago, we used to say that this was like getting an MBA, right? Except then when we eventually sold the assets of that company to fulfill the story that I told you earlier, like his wife was such a hard driving East Coaster that she was like, no, F that. Like, you have to go get an actual MBA. Like, that doesn't count. Like, Rob can say that. That's good for him. But for our family future, like, I need you to go get your ass an actual MBA so you can build a career again. It was like, okay. Which he did. But he often then joked, even as he went through that he felt like he'd already gotten his MBA, right? Because of the experiences that we had gone through in a similar type of time frame, 5 years-ish.
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
yourself,
I mean, I don't have a formal MBA, but the last 5 years have been a huge,
yes.
huge
And as you said earlier, and we're going to get to talk a little bit about that now, and this like next segment is in this transition of yours in life, right? But like you alluded to it earlier, right? Like you're now taking all these experiences and meshing them or bolting them onto the 20 some odd years of experience you had before this, right, in your professional life, in your career. And now the Lauren Gregor that shows up to the world and sits at coffee and the Palisades and entertains offers and discusses opportunities, like you're literally a different person than you were prior to the Rent-A-Romper experience, like completely.
Very, very different.
And better. I mean, I will just say that, like, experientially, right? Stronger, more resilient, smarter, more intuitive, literally more experienced at more different things than you were before. That's awesome. I have a personal question, if I might. And again, you're still involved in it. And you have a role. You're continuing to help grow the business. All that is true. But like, what's it like emotionally letting go of something that you built from scratch? Because I've referred to startups that I've been intimately involved in oftentimes like children. I mean, they're not children in the same way that like Gen Zers consider dogs to be like children. They're not children. Ultimately, we get that. It's very different parenting, right? But it does emotionally. It is something that you created. What's it been like letting go of that?
Horrifying. I mean, I think it's taken so long. And besides the fact that I've like birthed this company, I am a very competitive person. I do not like losing. I would say that I have a lot of grit. Like, I will find a way to make it work, any situation. And I think you kind of have to be that way to get into this in the first place. But it makes it really, really painful to let it go.
Yeah.
And it took me a very long time as I was deciding, like, here's the potential pathways of, like, and probably we might not have gotten to the place that we were had I not been that way, but where I didn't feel like this was a failure and where I didn't feel like it was my failure, that I failed as a founder, that I didn't have the $1 million exit. I didn't make investors lots of money. I didn't, have your name wherever you're supposed to have your name as a startup person. Right. But the fact that I was even in this space of like, I'm going to sell and I'm not going to, make a lot of money off of this or make any money off of this or whatever, like right. Make it to a point where I am paying myself a salary and I have lots of team, and all those things felt like it was me and my failure.
Yeah.
And it still hurts. Like, it's still painful, but
I do know.
I think that is for sure the hardest barrier it was for me to make this decision and to like really go down this path.
Yeah.
And it took talking to people that have been through it before, talking to people that are your trusted circle who really get it. Because it's one thing if like your friend says, you're so smart, you're great.
Yeah, because you are, and they love you.
Doesn't help. But if it's another person that's been through this and really understands it, says that, it makes a lot of difference.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Haney and Company. We all know that in today's complex financial landscape, having a trusted advisor can make all the difference. Since 1960, Haney and Company has been providing comprehensive accounting services to a diverse range of clients, from small businesses to large corporations. With nearly 400 professionals across 13 locations, they offer services in tax, audit, business consulting, and client advisory. In fact, their commitment to excellence has earned them recognition from Accounting Today and Forbes magazines. At Haney and Company, though, it's not just about balancing books. It's about building lasting relationships based on trust and mutual growth. So visit HaneyCPAs.com. That's HaneyCPAs.com to learn how they can support your business's financial journey.
And
I grieved for about 2 years after the fact. One of my lawyer, one of our advisors, literally said, "Hey, I'm going to get you this job with this company in Colorado." I was living in South Orange County at the time. "I'm going to get you this job with this company in Colorado. It's going to be like basically just mail in. You're going to be able to do this in your sleep, but I need you to be my eyes and ears on this project that we had invested in." Right. And he was like, "I think you just need to go there and just like recover. You just need to live." And so I literally like left the state and just like went someplace to essentially Boulder, Colorado to recover until it started snowing in October. And I realized like, what the fuck? I don't want to live. I don't like, yeah, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's get back to Southern California. But yeah, but 2 years. And then, and I did it to you while we were talking about this topic at coffee that day. Like, I slip into my like, oh, let me tell you the story of what that startup was and where it fit in the industry and da 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 da. And then you hear my voice go up and you see the competitive, and I literally lean into the table, and your next thing you realize is like, I'm still carrying a bit of the chip on my shoulder of this thing that was 25 years ago. Right? You will grieve forever long you grieve for, and you will always carry both the pride and that competitive fire attached to this thing that you birthed from nothing, but your idea and your instincts and your desires. Like, so it'll be with you, and it's very normal. How did your family react? You got a husband, you got kids. Like, I'd imagine there has to be part of them is like, oh my God, mom just gets to pack fewer boxes now. Like, but then there's also like the reality of like, they love you and they've literally like Rent-A-Romper became theirs too. Like, how did they react? Like, where are their feelings on this?
Yeah, I think that in all, they're like proud of me, which feels good. um, to have gotten to this point, to have built it and it's continuing on. And that's really great. I think in the practical side of things, my family, immediate family, is excited not to have baby clothes everywhere around us at all times of all of our life and not having boxes and shipments in every day to day of our lives.
Yeah.
So I think they're excited for like whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've been so critically part of it. Like my kids have been around it every day of their lives. They've helped me pack. They've scanned clothes. They've done it all. They wear all the clothes. So it's going to be a whole new chapter. And for them too, my boys are 11 and 9. I mean, in most of their memory of me as a working mom, it's been Rent-A-Romper.
Yep.
So even though I've had this career before that they were around, they were really small. So they don't really remember me as like this person besides the founder of Rent-A-Romper. So it's going to be a really interesting change.
That's fascinating. That's a quick anecdote on that. It's my daughter, I've talked about it here. She's 31 now. But I will never forget, I took her on a lunch meeting with investors once when she was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something, because I had her and like we were already divorced. And so I had her for the day and I had to do this thing and I brought her along. She still remembers that. Like and if anything, like that cemented in her mind, no matter what I would have done after that, like that my dad's an entrepreneur, right? Because like he took me to meetings with investors.
Yeah.
but he's also my dad who like took me to meetings with investors. Like he cared for, right? So it's embellished or indelibly marked on your kids that this is part of your identity going forward, which is, again, in the grand scheme of things, a great thing. All right. So last question before we get to our very last question, which is some of the advice you already teased, but this is just I'm not going to ask you what's next because that's just a cheap, easy question that you can't answer. But what I am really curious about, and I really actually thought most about this question yesterday when I was redoing the script, is right now, I haven't seen you in a couple months. We haven't talked. What's most interesting to you right now? And it could be 20 different things, but I want to hear what's in your brain right now. Like, what's most interesting to you as you think about shaping this next chapter of your story?
Yeah. So when I was saying before of like, I want to be like doing something that is of impact. And I think there's a lot of things that I feel really passionate about. One of the things I'm really interested in now is also because I have kids, but is youth sports.
Ooh.
And sports as like a way to bring people together, to, galvanize a community, to showcase. So I'm trying to read up on the Olympics, which is pretty cool because that's happening. The World Cup's going to be here next year. Like there's a lot of stuff happening in LA specifically, which is cool around sport. So that's one thing I'm really digging into a little bit in terms of just like trying to learn.
I love that.
But I do think, what's interesting is that I was an athlete growing up and I played in college. And I think sports really shaped my identity, my drive, like my character, all those different things.
People, you can still find competitive Lauren down on the sandy beach courts of the South Bay, I'm sure, on some weekends.
And I think it really does do that. And a lot of women, I also really care about women. So I like women in sports and I love women's sports.
And it leads to women in leadership.
The founder of Swindle is a former college athlete.
Okay.
The other person who's CMO of a company we talked to today about partnering, former college athlete.
See?
woman. So I do think that there is this like really leadership, women, sports, like all these connections, these understanding like how to support founders, women founders, and help them grow. Because I think in my experience, all the female leaders that I've come across in these businesses are like employing other women. They are paying livable wages. They are making the world a better place through their businesses.
Yep.
And if I can help them, that's something that's really interesting to me right now.
Okay.
I'm actually just doing some consulting a little bit, and I'm working with a healthcare agency, home healthcare agency, led by two sisters, and they employ 15 caregivers who are, it's like really practical, amazing core businesses that are having an impact on people's day-to-day lives. And how do you support that? So that's like very all over the place. But
no, not at all, actually. I mean, you may have felt like it sounded like it was because you described a whole bunch of pieces of it, but there's actually like a through line that you pull right through there, which is incredible.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out where that is and what that is. If it's in pieces and helping different people, I'm all for that. And
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of exciting stuff, especially here in LA. So
yeah, I mean, if these are things that are interesting to you, like you also just have, I mean, you're standing in the front door of an entryway that is about to lead to all kinds of coalescence around those things, right? So, I mean, what a great place to be. Again, also surrounded by so many other incredible female role models and leaders in these areas that you're interested or intrigued by, right, that you want to explore. I mean, I looked, if you saw me look away, it's because I did my Rob Ryan friend mentor person thing. And I like took my host hat off for a second while you're talking. I scribbled down like 3 names of people. I'm like, okay, we've got to connect her to these people. Right. So that's incredible. Yeah. It's awesome. I'm super excited. And selfishly, I'm excited that these are some of the things you're leaning towards, because these are things I'm also super passionate about. So that means we get to help each other. So that's the best of both worlds. All right. Last question. And again, you alluded to an answer in this, but let's unpack it here if we can, because this is kind of the tactical takeaway advice for folks that are listening. If someone's listening or watching who finds themselves stuck between staying inside of a venture or stepping away and or exploring kind of the 4 options that you created when you started having these conversations with your advisors, what are the few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 key questions that they should be asking themselves right now to either kick off that process or to energize their thinking around this place that it's such a unique little spot that they're stuck in, that you've just been in?
Yeah. Well, I think the first part I would say is, do you know what your finances look like as your business? Like, and really think it through and make some different scenarios. So, are you in a place where you're growing and you can continue that? What does that look like in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years? So I think understanding, because that then leads to like, 1, how imminent is the decision that you need to make? And what do those various scenarios look like for you personally? And I think that was a big question for me is, what does scenario A look like in my day-to-day? And is that something I want? And is it something that I can do for 2 more years to get to a version of what I want? Yeah. So I think being honest with yourself about that, and like, I did an exercise for about a week where I just wrote down the activities that I was doing in a day-to-day. Today I packed boxes. Today I looked at our weekly...
Pack boxes again.
Today I looked at our weekly data. Today I answered customer service emails. Today I did this. And like, is if that's what your day to day or week to week is going to look like going forward, is that what you want? And
I love
you
the
can,
honesty of that, like literal, the writing exercise of, because you may think like, oh, I was busy today. And then you look at the list that you wrote and you're like, oh, this is what I did this week.
yeah.
This is what I really did this week,
And I
not what I
think
thought I did.
in that exercise, you can say, was I happy doing this or was I not? Was I engaged? Was I bored? Was I this? You can, happy face, sad face, whatever it is. Because regardless, in any job, there's activities you have to do on a day to day that you're not going to be like, that was the jam. I love that. But if your every single day is starting to look sad face,
Right.
and you think that's going to be the next 2 years of your life, like then that's really something you need to think about. And so I guess those are two practical things.
Yeah.
What is your life? What is the life you want? And, understanding where your financial pieces are.
That's awesome.
And I forget what else you said, but
no, that was that. Like you just gave a couple of good pieces of advice. That's great. Talk to other people.
Talk to other people. And yeah, did you have, I feel like there was something else you asked.
No. That was it. I mean, it was just what are those questions that they should be asking themselves? And you gave them an exercise. You gave them a little bit of a roadmap. I mean, that's.
Well, I don't want to like leave them on a really negative point because like we've talked about before, this is hard. This is really hard. And I think the other thing to do when you have like that day-to-day activity is write down everything you've learned from building your business. Or like you said, Lauren Gregor now is a different person than I was then. Who are you now and what have you learned? Because I think for me, like I was saying about feeling like a failure and all of that, I had to actually think through what I've personally gained and what I've personally achieved to be able to make that decision.
I was going to add like the punchline there to help, as you say, like not make it seem like it's so heavy, which it wasn't at all, by the way. I think you thought that it might be, but it's not. Like, because the truth is like, this is a journey. Like, and it's a journey of self-discovery. I mean, running a business is a journey of self-discovery and of market discovery and of like broader contextual societal discovery. Like, so it is the classic definition of like that the value is really just in the journey and not in the end destination. Right. And to me, that was the thing that I felt so strongly from you when we visited with each other was just, I could feel your energy was that like, regardless of the difficulty of the transition and the emotion of the letting go and the competitive fire that has you look in the mirror and think like I failed and then have to figure out how to convince yourself that you didn't. And then let other people's truths in to remind you that you're loved and that you're special and that you're like all of that. Like the reality is like, that's the real value. That's the practical skills you picked up in the journey is the MBA, so to speak, as we talked about it. Right. But the real, like, these are, man, I am proud as ever of that baby that I created back 25, 30 years ago with my friend Mark Schaubs. Like that I'll forever tell those stories. Right. Because those stories ultimately, they become like great memories of a friendship or a relationship, right? Like you're able to go back into it and you don't have the pain attached to it. You just have the celebratory truths of it. And like the fact that we took the risks, the fact that we bet on yourself. When I first met you, and we talked about you, like in your story, you would have never predicted you were going to be an entrepreneur like 10, 15 years ago, like doing what you did. Right. And yet you did it. You like completely bet on yourself. And what you've just done for people today is you've reminded them of that. And then in my humble opinion, you've also now with the last section we just talked about, you've handed people a very practical, very helpful roadmap on how, if you find yourself, if my story sounds like yours, as you listen to this and you find yourself going down this path, aside from, by the way, obviously, which we'll do in a second here, like reach out to Lauren Gregor, like if you find yourself in this pathway, because she is literally the person, one of these people that you want to talk to. But you, in the discussion today, in this conversation, you roadmap the like practical side of this journey so people can listen and like take notes and navigate their way through it while also just being what you are, which is a great, strong, talented, kind, empathetic woman, wife, mom, like daughter, like, so, you just reminded people that it's okay to be not okay sometimes. And that's okay in your business as a founder, as an entrepreneur. And you also reminded them right at the very beginning, what does success mean? Right? And success is a very personal thing to everybody. And the system, the industry that we get pushed into, isn't always necessarily where we need to take our definitions of what matters to us from. So this is amazing. This is absolutely the conversation I hope to, and I kind of thought we would have, but I hoped we would have. So thank you. Thank you for it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So if people want to reach out to you, how do they find just good old Lauren Gregor? Just not Lauren Gregor, founder of this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Just, how do they find just good old Lauren Gregor?
I'm on LinkedIn, so LinkedIn is easy. You can email me at lauren@laurengregor.com, or I'm also on Instagram. So any of those places.
Awesome.
Just reach out. I'd love if anybody is going through this and wants to talk. Absolutely. The door is open. I love to chat, and however that I can be helpful.
Love it. Thank you, my friend. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy the sunshine.
I will. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was recorded here in Los Angeles and produced by the incomparable Deanna Bernal in Mexico City. We can only grow this show by you listening and sharing the show with friends. So please find, like, follow, subscribe, and share our audio-only show on Spotify, Apple, or via any other popular podcasting platforms, as well as find the video version of our show now available on our YouTube channel over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And of course, you can follow along on our various social media platforms for fun and informative clips and content at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, wherever you can find us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at I Am Rob Ryan on just about any social media platform. Gracias, thank you, and have an awesome day.